what is wrong with the Hawks, or at least Trae Young shooting at this point in the year? They go 3-2 on this recent road trip. They salvage it with the Knicks and big comeback win there. And they start a homestand on Saturday with the Pelicans. It's going to be an interesting game, to say the least. Pelicans have come out, started very, very well. I'll say this about the Hawks, guys, and here's the only assessment I've had so far to this point, and here's kind of what I'm worried about. As they try to figure out this new look offense and Dejounte Murray and how everything's fitting in and who does what, we've seen Capella's scoring go way down to start the year. He's certainly not the going to be the double-double guy you thought you were getting, at least the way the offense is unfolding now. DeAndre Hunter's been up a little bit. He's been down. I think he needs to be in the high teens, not in like the 12, 13 range as far as scoring is concerned. All that said, I keep looking up at Trae Young's shooting stats, and they're bad. You're talking about a guy who's barely shooting 40%, under 40% from the field, and shooting under 30% from three. And I want to play this scenario out and get your thought. We have seen Trae flex his I'm the star muscle before, and has gotten what he wanted. He got a coach fired. I mean, it is what it is. He didn't want to work with Lloyd Pierce anymore, and out he went, and in Nate McMillan comes. Trae may turn around at some point if he doesn't start to shoot better and say, I want the ball in my hands. I'm the star. I do better. I score better. I shoot better when I have the ball. I want the ball. And this whole thing sort of goes sideways very quickly. Am I overstating how this could go?
I believe so. Because when you think about one of the reasons why they brought Dejounte Murray in, because everybody knows that Miami Heat series was a big old indictment on how this team was constructed, right? And don't get me wrong, the Hawks have thirsted for a superstar / star, whatever you want to classify him as, for quite some time. I know, because I remember Dominique Wilkins, and that was the last time they really had one. I know people want to talk about that other team, that 60-win team, but it was not a star on that team at all. You can forget about that. But I think that the main thing is he needed help. He needed somebody that can take some of the pressure off, so he won't have to handle the ball consistently. He won't have to always initiate the offense out. It even makes sense, because after one of the games, he was talking about Trae Young was talking about how John Collins. They were asking, like, what are some of the differences you've seen in John Collins this year? He said he has somebody else that can get him the basketball, and that was the first words that came out of his mouth, because him having all that pressure and have to get his and have to get John Collins involved and have to initiate the offense for everybody else, that's a lot of pressure. And I think that now that pressure is relieved, I think he's still trying to figure his way out. Don't get me wrong. I think that's the case, playing off ball and all that stuff. But I think it's just a matter of them continue to figure out how this offense is going to work. I don't necessarily think that he wants the ball more, because that's what got them bounced out of the playoffs in the first round of playoffs against the Miami Heat.
Well, we know that John Collins and Trae Young don't agree on how the offense is supposed to be run.
No
so we know that for sure.
Yeah.
Mark, I'll be honest with you, Mark. I think a lot of this is about Nate McMillan trying to learn how to rotate those guys around. You saw in the Houston game, he split those guys up pretty quickly. I mean, in the first quarter, if you remember, Dejounte Murray went off the court and Trae was running everything by himself. So I think this is as much a learning curve for Nate McMillan about how to use those guys. The thing about Murray, why you don't like to take him off the court if you don't have to, is because they don't have anybody defensively who can change a game the way that Murray can. And that's what he did the other night. I mean, It's not just he makes the steals and turns the possession over, but he leads you to easy baskets. So, look, the only reason that they got back in that game is because of Murray's defensive intensity. And they weren't shooting threes. They weren't shooting better. But when you can dunk it and give layups, that makes your offense look a lot more efficient than what it is. So I think a lot of this
an 11-2 run as soon as Trae went out of the game.
Well, right. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, after they were down 51-20, after they were down 51-28, they went 84-48 the rest of the way. So
it's kind of leading to my point. They may be better defensively with Trae Young off the floor. Trae Young isn't scoring as much as we think he's going to. He's not shooting as well. How does your star handle that? Does Trae the star that goes, I'm okay with it, we're winning games, that's all I care about? Or is Trae the star that goes, I want the damn ball?
Well, I think that's yet to be seen. I mean,
right, that's my point.
Right. I mean, I think we're so early in the season that it's hard to get a gauge on all of that. But look, as I've said, you can watch Dejounte Murray and understand that he was playing for Greg Popovich. He was a San Antonio Spur. he looks like that kind of player. Like you can trust him fundamentally. You can trust him to not be a knucklehead on the court. You can trust him in a lot of different ways. I think Nate McMillan is trying to figure out how those two guys blend and mesh. And look, when you're down by 30 in a game, you don't have much of a choice. But I think your head coach is the one who is trying to figure things out. I think as much as Trae Young is trying to figure some things out, Mark, I think your head coach is trying to figure out, how do I use all of my guys? How do I rotate these guys around?
And I think that's what that's why he get paid the big bucks, right? He's the head coach. He got to figure that bad boy out too. And you can just look at Nate McMillan when he talking about Dejounte Murray. He loves some Dejounte Murray. He gives him free reign to do whatever he wants on defense. He's like, man, take all the chances you want. Try to get all the steals you can. Because, hey, guess what? The Hawks need that. They need Dejounte Murray as much as Trae sometimes in certain point times in the game.
Let me ask you guys this question. Mark, you said going sideways. If this thing goes sideways, do you think that there's an eagerness to make some kind of move on Nate McMillan? Do you think that
he's going to be a sacrificial lamb? Obviously,
sure. I mean, I don't think Nate McMillan has a long leash.
His track record says he's the sacrificial lamb,
right? But I don't think when you talk to Tony Ressler, you talk to Travis Schlenk, I don't think he's got a long leash. I don't care that he signed an extension. I don't think his leash is all that long. They changed their roster on to be a top tier team. If it goes sideways, whether Trae Young likes it or not, he may not have a decision in whether or not the coach stays or goes, because I don't think they're going to give Nate McMillan a very long leash if it goes sideways.
Agree. And I mean,
notice I was Ime Udoka.
Well, listen, he's going to Brooklyn now to fix that mess. So that is a mess. And I'll tell you, and the big picture real quick, guys, before we wrap things up, like that is something I think that benefits the Hawks. I think at this point in time, there's a good chance that whole thing gets blown up. Kevin Durant gets traded and everything just falls apart. Like, it's unsustainable at this point in time, the mess that's there. And I would argue that that's one less team that's standing in front of the Hawks.
Oh,
right
yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Probably objectively the seventh best team in the East. And with the Nets out of the way, they're now the sixth best team.
Yeah, that's a them problem. I mean, if because they stink, we move ahead. It's like the Falcons, right? I mean, look, it's not the Falcons' fault that the NFC has not been very good this year. It's not their fault that the division has not been good, but you take advantage of it by everybody being bad means we can be better.
And to be honest with you, they've done this before, right? The Hawks have seen this move before. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they end up catching the New York Knicks, and then caught the Philadelphia 76ers when they was dealing with all the Ben Simmons crap. Hey, like I said, they've done it before. They can do it again.
That's the worst thing to have happened to this franchise in the last 5 years, is make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. It genuinely is, because everybody thought that they were better than they were. They made no upgrades that offseason, and we found out, guess what? They caught a Philadelphia 76ers team, as you said, that was asleep at the wheel and was dealing with more stuff. Beating the Knicks, totally fine. Like, that's It was beating the Hawks, and then taking Milwaukee to 6 games that really, sort of made people think that this team was better than what it was. And to circle it back, guys, which is the one thing I said, which is the cardinal mistake that Terry Fontenot can't make, that Travis Schlenk and Tony Ressler did. Just because the hour is pointing up right now doesn't mean it stays pointing up.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
You're always continually getting better.
Got to figure it
out. Because
yeah.
the Falcons look like they're ahead of pace right now for where they're supposed to be, and they're ahead of schedule. Don't mistake that for we have good players. You don't have good players.
So the one thing, Mark, I know you've talked about taking a bigger approach view, but when you're in it, you go win it. I mean, it's easy to say we'll worry about next year, but as I always say, look, if it were that easy to just turn the switch of winning on, every franchise in the league would do that. They'd set the roster up and then say, okay, let's turn the switch on and now we start winning. If it were that easy, everybody would do it. So when you're in it, you make the moves that continue to grow your team and you win. You go out and win. I mean, again, you worry about 3 or 4 years and, okay, that's when we're going to win. Well, there's a lot of, look, the Colts have thought for 3 years that, well, we'll just bring the quarterback in and we'll just turn the switch and we'll start winning. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot more to it.
Well, for more on the Falcons, make sure you guys check out Locked On Falcons. Make it your first listen every day. I told you about your next listen. It's got to be the Locked On Sports Today podcast. You get the biggest stories of the day, instant reaction, big game recaps, and the take of the day. But if you want the take of the day from Chuckery, you got to stay right here at Locked On Sports Atlanta. Yeah. Locked On Sports Today podcast,
hot, baby.
On the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Gentlemen, I'll be on the couch on Saturday watching Tennessee. Well, actually, I'll be in the bar watching Tennessee and Georgia, sitting back on a couple of cold ones, pounding some chicken wings. I want no part of being in Sanford Stadium.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
In my old age, I don't like anybody enough to sit next to strangers in the stand. So if I'm not in the suite, I'm not going to a pro game either.
A bunch of loud college kids, Mark. Yeah. I mean, that's just what I need in my life, right?
Whew. Yeah, wake up.
College atmospheres used to tempt me. Not anymore. As a married man with 2 kids.
Kids now. That's what happens. Yeah. Okay? People start to irritate you when you have children. Why? Because your own children irritate you.
Yeah, I expend all my
that irritates you. People nuts.
I expend all my energy chasing around my teenage daughter. The last thing I want to do is add college kids into the mix for all of that. I got one person in my life that's enough.
I can't wait till Chuckery has to go to Parents Weekend at college and watch a football game.
Oh.
I got parent-teachers meetings to go to next week, guys. Hey, come on, man. I got no time to go to a college football game.
Listen, my daughter starts high school next year. That's going to be challenging enough. Listen, I'm already loading up on get ready pills, Mark. I'm already making moves in the front office. Load up on get ready pills.
On guns and ammo. That's what I would have. All
Speaking
right.
of guns,
that'll do it for this month's ATL Hangout. He's Jarvis Davis. There's John Chuckery. I'm Mark Zinno. Make sure you guys follow Locked On Sports Atlanta at Locked On ATL on Twitter. At J Davis 90, right?
Jarvis D90. There we go.
I always get the initial Jarvis D90 at JMC 16 on Chuckery for Chuckery, right?
JMCH 316. There you go.
I knew there was 360.
Yeah.
I only know my own. I don't know anybody else's power. It's like remembering phone numbers these days. If I just write John Chuckery into Twitter, it pops up. So there's that. Don't worry about me at Mark Zinno. There's that at Locked On ATL. Appreciate you guys joining us here on this Friday. Enjoy the hell out of the weekend. You'll get each of us back on Monday with a recap of everything. Thanks for watching and listening to Locked On Sports Atlanta or ATL Hangout. Have a great day.